When Martha Stewart appeared on Steve Harvey's show to teach cooking, nobody expected the hilarious culture clash that followed. Their differences created comedy gold and proved that sometimes the most unlikely combinations produce the most entertaining television. It was October 2019, and the producers of the Steve Harvey show had arranged what they thought would be a straightforward cooking segment. Martha Stewart, the undisputed queen of lifestyle and domestic perfection, would teach Steve Harvey how to prepare an elegant fall dinner. It seemed like a perfect match, Martha's expertise and Steve's humor combining to create engaging daytime television. What they didn't anticipate was that putting together a perfectionist who measured ingredients to the gram with a comedian who thought a pinch was an exact measurement would create one of the most hilariously chaotic cooking segments in television history. Martha Stewart had built her empire on precision, elegance, and attention to detail. Every recipe was tested multiple times, every presentation was flawlessly styled, and every instruction was given with the authority of someone who had perfected the art of gracious living. Steve Harvey, on the other hand, was a man who once admitted on his radio show that he considered cereal a complete dinner and thought the microwave was the greatest invention in human history. The stage was set for a collision of two completely different worlds. Martha arrived at the studio that morning with her usual preparation. She had brought her own knives, her preferred cooking utensils, and ingredients that had been sourced from specific farms and specialty stores. Everything was organized with military precision in containers labeled with her trademark attention to detail. Steve walked onto the set and immediately surveyed Martha's setup with the expression of a man who had just entered a foreign country. "Martha," Steve said, looking at the array of perfectly arranged ingredients, "this looks like you're about to perform surgery." "Cooking is a science, Steve," Martha replied with a smile. "When you follow the proper techniques and use quality ingredients, you achieve superior results." "I follow a technique too," Steve said. "It's called throw it in the pan and hope for the best." The audience was already laughing, and they hadn't even started cooking yet. Martha had planned to teach Steve how to make her signature herb-crusted salmon with roasted vegetables and a wine reduction sauce. It was an elegant dish that showcased proper cooking techniques while being sophisticated enough for entertaining guests. "First," Martha began, "we need to prepare our mise en place." Steve stared at her blankly. "Our what now?" "Mise en place. It's French for everything in its place. We organize all our ingredients before we begin cooking." Steve looked at Martha's perfectly arranged ingredients, then at his own space, where he had randomly placed items without any apparent system. "Martha, I have mise en mess," Steve said, gesturing at his disorganized area. Martha, ever the professional, decided to start with something simple. "Let's begin by selecting the proper knife for our fish." She held up a sleek, expensive-looking knife that gleamed under the studio lights. "This is a German steel fish knife, specifically designed for filleting. Notice the flexible blade and the ergonomic handle." Steve picked up his knife, which looked like something he might have grabbed from his kitchen drawer at home. "This is a knife I bought at the grocery store. Notice how it cuts things." "Steve," Martha said gently, "the quality of your tools directly impacts the quality of your results." "Martha, my results are usually edible. That's as quality as I need them to be." As they began preparing the salmon, the differences in their approaches became even more apparent. Martha measured herbs with precision, using a small scale to ensure exact proportions. Steve looked at her setup and shook his head. "Martha, you're weighing herbs like you're dealing drugs. Proper measurements ensure consistent results," Martha explained patiently. I measure with my heart, Steve replied, dumping what appeared to be roughly a quarter cup of herbs onto his fish. Martha watched in barely concealed horror as Steve's heart measurement created a salmon fillet that was completely buried under a mountain of seasoning. Steve, perhaps we should remove some of that. Nah, we're good. More flavor, right? Throughout the cooking process, Martha tried to maintain her composure, while Steve unwittingly violated every principle of good cooking she had spent decades perfecting. When Martha demonstrated the proper way to heat the pan, gradually warming it to the correct temperature and testing it with a drop of water, Steve cranked his burner to high and threw his fish directly onto the hot surface. "Steve!" Martha exclaimed as his salmon began sizzling aggressively. "You're cooking it too fast." "Martha, I'm a busy man. I don't have time to sweet-talk my fish." The audience was in stitches as Martha tried to salvage Steve's cooking while maintaining her trademark grace under pressure. "Perhaps we should lower the heat," Martha suggested diplomatically. "The heat is fine," Steve insisted, even as smoke began rising from his pan. "Steve, it's smoking. That means it's working." Martha looked directly at the camera with an expression that became an instant meme. But the real comedy gold came when Martha tried to teach Steve about wine pairing and reduction sauces. "For our wine reduction, we'll use a nice Pinot Noir," Martha explained, holding up a bottle that looked expensive even to viewers who knew nothing about wine. Steve examined the bottle. "How much does this wine cost?" "Well, it's not about the cost. It's about the flavor profile." "Martha, how much?" "Perhaps $45. Steve's eyes widened. $45 for cooking? "Martha, I don't put $45 worth of anything in my food unless it's the main course." "Good wine makes a difference in cooking," Martha insisted. "You know what makes a difference in cooking? Eating it," Steve replied, taking a sip directly from the expensive bottle. Martha's expression suggested she had just witnessed a crime against cuisine. As they continued cooking, Steve's complete disregard for cooking conventions began to have an unexpected effect on Martha. Despite her initial horror at his techniques, she started to appreciate his enthusiasm and confidence. When Steve accidentally knocked over his perfectly arranged mise en place, sending herbs and vegetables scattering across the counter, Martha surprised everyone by laughing. "You know what, Steve? Sometimes cooking is supposed to be messy." "Now you're talking my language," Steve said, continuing to cook while ingredients remained scattered everywhere. The turning point came when they tasted their finished dishes. Steve's salmon, despite being prepared with what Martha considered barbaric techniques, was actually delicious. The excessive herbs had created a flavorful crust, and his aggressive cooking had given the fish a perfect sear. Martha tasted Steve's creation with obvious surprise. "This is actually quite good." "Martha, you sound shocked." "I am shocked. You violated every principle of good cooking. And yet, it tastes good?" "It tastes very good." Steve tried Martha's perfectly prepared salmon and had to admit it was exceptional. "Okay, this is amazing, but it probably took you 3 hours to make this." "Proper cooking takes time," Martha said. "Proper eating takes 30 seconds, Steve replied, taking another large bite. As the segment continued, something beautiful began to happen. Despite their vastly different approaches, Steve and Martha started to find common ground in their shared love of feeding people and bringing them joy. "You know, Steve," Martha said as they cleaned up, "cooking doesn't always have to be perfect to be wonderful." "And, Martha," Steve replied, "maybe I could learn a thing or two about not burning everything I touch." Their genuine appreciation for each other's perspectives created some of the most heartwarming moments in the segment. When a viewer called in to ask for relationship advice, both Steve and Martha offered insights that showed how their different backgrounds actually complemented each other. "Martha," the caller said, "my husband never helps in the kitchen. How do I get him more involved?" Martha's response was characteristically practical. "Start with simple tasks. Give him one responsibility and let him master it before adding more." Steve's approach was more direct. "Ma'am, tell your husband that if he wants to eat, he needs to help cook. It's teamwork." "Actually," Martha said, considering Steve's point, that's quite wise. Cooking together can strengthen relationships. "See?" Steve said to the audience. "Martha's learning that sometimes you just got to be real with people." The segment that was supposed to last 20 minutes stretched to nearly 45 minutes because Steve and Martha were having so much fun together that neither wanted to stop. During one break, Martha approached Steve privately. "I have to admit, Steve, this has been more enjoyable than I expected." "Really? Even though I destroyed your fancy cooking lesson?" "You didn't destroy it. You made it more human. And you made me realize that maybe I should stop treating my kitchen like a crime scene." Their on-screen chemistry was so natural and entertaining that the producers immediately began planning future collaborations. When the episode aired, viewers were charmed by the unlikely friendship between the perfectionist lifestyle guru and the everyman comedian. Social media lit up with reactions to their interactions. "Martha Stewart trying not to have a heart attack while Steve Harvey cooks is my new favorite thing," one viewer tweeted. "I need a friendship like Martha and Steve, someone to class me up and someone to keep me real," posted another. "Steve Harvey just made Martha Stewart laugh at kitchen chaos. This is character development," wrote a fan. The success of their cooking segment led to Martha appearing on Steve's show several more times, each appearance generating viral moments and genuine entertainment. In their second appearance together, Martha tried to teach Steve proper table setting, which resulted in Steve creating what he called freestyle place settings that completely ignored traditional etiquette, but somehow still looked appealing. "Steve, the fork goes on the left," Martha instructed patiently. "Martha, the fork goes where people can find it," Steve replied, placing utensils in seemingly random positions around the plate. Their third collaboration involved Martha teaching Steve about wine tasting, which produced possibly even funnier results than their cooking segment. "Notice the wine's legs," Martha said, swirling her glass professionally. Steve examined his wine glass intensely. "Martha, this wine doesn't have legs. It's a liquid." "The legs refer to how the wine runs down the glass." "Oh well, my wine has good legs then, because it's running right into my mouth." But beyond the comedy, their collaborations revealed something important about the nature of expertise and authenticity. Martha's knowledge and precision elevated Steve's natural enthusiasm, while Steve's genuineness and humor made Martha's expertise more accessible and relatable. "Working with Steve taught me that perfection isn't always the point," Martha said in a later interview. "Sometimes the joy of doing something together is more important than doing it flawlessly." Steve echoed those sentiments. "Martha showed me that taking a little care with what you do can make a big difference, and she learned that my way might be messy, but it comes from the heart." Their unlikely partnership became a model for how people with completely different backgrounds and approaches can learn from each other while creating something entertaining and meaningful. Years later, both continued to reference their collaborations as highlights of their respective careers. Martha began incorporating more humor and spontaneity into her own shows, while Steve started paying slightly more attention to presentation in his cooking, though he never did start measuring herbs with a scale. Martha Stewart made me realize that doing things right doesn't have to be boring, Steve reflected. And I think I showed her that doing things wrong can sometimes be right too. Their friendship proved that the best entertainment often comes from authentic interactions between people who are secure enough in their own expertise to appreciate different approaches. The Martha Stewart episodes remain among the most popular cooking segments in Steve Harvey show history, not because they produced perfect dishes, but because they produced perfect chemistry between two entertainers who found joy in their differences. If this incredible story of an unlikely friendship and the comedy that comes from cultural clashes moved you, please subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to see that different approaches can create beautiful results when combined with mutual respect and good humor. Have you ever learned something valuable from someone whose style was completely different from yours? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to ring that notification bell for more amazing stories about the magic that happens when different worlds collide.